Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining me on this episode where I have the pleasure of interviewing Angela Agranoff, a woman with the most calming voice I have ever heard, who is a master unclutterer and a coach of EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques, also known as tapping. Now, there's a story of a man who goes to a monk and asks him to teach him. After a few minutes of conversation, the monk asks the man if he would like some tea, to which his guest replied that yes, he would. The monk proceeds to fill the cup, but when it's full, he continues to fill it up and it overflows. The man who had been speaking almost non-stop stops all of a sudden and just stares. Very confused, he asks the monk why he's continuing to pour out tea since it's already overflowing. The monk stops what he's doing and says, "The cup is like your mind. Until you empty it of what's there, you won't be able to learn new things." From this story, we learn the importance of letting go of what's filling our space so we can let in new things, new experiences. In this conversation, we discuss the methods Angela uses for her clients to help them free up their mind, heart, and their physical space. Don't forget to listen to the end. After the interview, I'll answer a question from the audience. This time, I'll answer a question about planning for mistakes. Hello, Angela. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Uh, Thank you for joining us. I'm actually very interested in the subject that you, I'll say, are an expert in. Just because I think, that a lot of people, including myself, can definitely benefit from it since it helps deal with emotions. But you know what? I'll let you explain it since you'll be able to do it so much better than me.
Well, I appreciate that. So, I am an EFT practitioner, and EFT is also called the Emotional Freedom Techniques. Some people call it tapping, and people call that because that pretty much describes the technique itself. And it helps with stress and anxiety and overwhelm and all of those difficult emotions that we have. And it's a great relaxation tool, and it brings us to a state of calm. It's kind of like a version of acupuncture, like psychological acupuncture, but without the needles.
So it's literally tapping on the body?
It is. You tap on different pressure points on your
Okay.
body. Yeah.
I so I've heard about it,
Okay.
but only recently.
Okay. Well, it's been around since the 1990s. Gary Craig originally came up with this concept after researching on some thought therapy. And it's kind of changed and transformed over the years, and people have their own ways and methods of using EFT. I use a very basic um, method, or tapping points, I should say. So it's just very gentle tapping using the tips of your fingers on different parts, like on your, above your eye or your chin or your collarbone. And these just different tapping points are on your meridian, and it just helps to relieve that stress, kind of relaxes your nervous system.
Wait, hold on. You're saying that there's one of the locations to tap is right above the eye?
Yeah, so usually we start on the karate chop point, which is the side of your hand, and you just
Okay.
tap with your other hand with the tips of your fingers, just very gently. It should never hurt. So just be very gentle. And then we have a few statements. Usually my clients, they just repeat statements that I give them on whatever issue that they're
Okay.
working on. And then we take it to right where our eyebrows are. And then we take it to the side of our eye, where the little bone is on the side of your eye. And then we do under the eye and the little bone there. And then we take it to under the nose. So between your lip, your top lip and your nose, and then chin. So that little shelf where your chin is. And then collarbone, which is, just those two little bones, knobby points on where your collarbone is. And then we take it to under the arm, about 4 inches from your armpit. And then we take it to the top of the head, kind of like where you wear your crown. And we just tap there. And that's a full round for me. Now, some people use other tapping points or they add additional ones in, but I use those as my basic tapping points.
Okay. Now, I have to ask you because you have a very calming voice. I don't know
Mm,
if you've ever been told that before.
I have.
Yeah, I'd assumed so. Um, did that come after you started doing this as a practice, or were you always very calm?
So I guess it just worked out really well because this is just who I am. And I've been told that many times just through, I make videos and
Okay.
I do get comments on that. So I really appreciate, I appreciate that. Yeah, I figure, and some people start yawning while we do tapping rounds, but that's really just because the brain's doing some work, making some shifts, and people will yawn. That's very common. But at first, yeah, with my voice, I thought, am I like putting them to sleep? But it's just that the brain's working, and some people will yawn, and people have different reactions through tapping. It's pretty amazing what tapping can do for us, not just emotionally, but physically. It's really a tool that calms and reduces our stress and anxiety.
Well, it's tied. I mean, I'm assuming, right? What happens to us emotionally and physically is tied together.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
and there's kind of a science
So I have a
behind it
question for
too.
you. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Okay. No, no, go for it, please. What's the science behind it?
Yeah, so I am not a scientist or an expert, but one woman that I really like to follow, that she is a
Mm,
scientist and she gives great explanations. She actually studies the science behind EFT. Her name is Dr. Peta Stapleton. And you can find her videos and articles, and she goes into great depth on how EFT not only affects our mind, but our bodies, and how it kind of works hand in hand, but how it also not only affects our thoughts, but how EFT can also affect different ailments that we might have,
okay.
pain. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if some of your listeners are more into, I would like to see proof, that this isn't all woo woo stuff, then she's a great resource to see the science behind it.
All right, perfect. We'll probably add a link to that in the show notes then.
Okay.
Um, but so my question to you is this: how did you come about to find this?
So many years ago, I had decided that I wanted to, and it's an interesting, and I'll make it a quick story, but I wanted to become a professional organizer, which is someone that goes into people's homes and helps people kind of declutter and get their homes in order and organized. And what I was finding was when I would go into a home, there was so much more than just the clutter. There was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
emotions around the clutter. But what
Yeah.
was difficult was working with somebody trying to get all their stuff cleaned up, but having to trying to have a conversation with them about it. And I had come across a couple of people that talked about the connection between clutter and our emotions. And I just thought that was fascinating. And then it got connected into, it kind of led me down that path to EFT. So in 2012, I just started researching and learning more about EFT and
Mm-hmm.
how it affects the mind and the body. And I just thought, how brilliant is this to help people declutter, but also move past the blocks that they would have um, in their mind when it comes to their clutter. But I also found as I became a practitioner that it helped me in my journey and blocks that I would have in different areas of my life. So I get very excited talking about EFT because it really has changed my life. And
Okay.
it's been beautiful watching, working with clients and seeing the shifts that they have as well.
Do you still work with people regarding their physical clutter, or do you now only do EFT?
So now I work online with clients. So it's
Mm.
people would call it virtual organizing, but I am a clutter coach. And so I will meet people online and we will talk about their space and the issues that they have in their space, but I also will tap with them. So when emotions come up, like some people have resistance to starting a project or continuing with a project or even making decisions about what to keep, what to give away. It's really cool how EFT can help to work through some of those emotions to help them moving forward with their projects.
Interesting. So you're really seeing a connection between the physical clutter that people have in their homes to what's going on in their psyche, I'll say.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know. For me personally, I know because I live in a house of 5 people. So we're a normal family. So there is stuff that gets, tossed here and there. And, but I'm one where I can feel it physically and emotionally when there's just stuff like in the kitchen or whatever. And it's like, I can just feel it in my body. So it helps me to remind myself when I'm working with my clients what they are going through. And there are some people that hold on to things too. And you think about the things that we keep that have memories or,
Yeah.
just really tough decisions. Like, on one hand, I don't need this. I'm never going to use it again. But on the other hand, my mom or my dad gave this to me or my grandparents. And that's a real struggle for people because I think they feel guilt and shame that maybe they want to let it go, but they feel obligated to keep it. Or they feel overwhelmed or stressed because they've let a space go and they don't even know where to start and they're stuck. So it's
Okay.
really interesting the different emotions that people feel when it comes to getting organized.
So I'll share a personal story about that. My grandparents used to hoard everything. They were not hoarders, right? But they had an
Mm-hmm.
antique store, an outside marketplace. So for them, everything was always an opportunity to add to their shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
In addition to, it's a generation that went through World War II in Europe, so they kept things, and they had a big enough house. Okay, so they kept things, and my mother, when she became independent, she reacted in the completely opposite way. She would just throw everything out, always, very easily. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
using it for a month or two. It's out, not even a question. So she was very minimalistic. And when I was growing up, so I was the opposite of her. But as I grew up more and more, I'm becoming. It's not that I'm becoming like her. It's that I'm actually finding the balance. Between what should I keep, because some things do have memories that are attached to them or are useful, but that's not even a question then. And what don't I need to keep? Even though it could have some memory attached to it or whatnot. And finding that balance, I think is, and for me at least, a never-ending struggle, sort of.
And I totally agree. And I think everyone is different.
Hmm.
And the example you gave is perfect, where I know for me, because I am more of an emotional person, which I think is a good thing. I have to do it in phases. I have 3 kids. So growing up, I had certain experiences. So
Hmm.
now being a mom, it is a little bit harder for me to let go of certain things of theirs from when they were younger. So I do things in phases. So some people have to do things. It's not an all or nothing. Like there's some things that are just easy for me to chuck, but if I do things in phases and I can let go of that stuff, or I teach people how to document items that they
Okay.
have. So that's a great solution. So you don't feel like you've just completely given away something. You can document it in some way, whether it's creating a memory book or, photographs, journaling, things like that. And
Hmm.
it makes it even more personal to you and much easier to store and enjoy than the actual stuff. So that, yeah, there's a lot of different methods that I like to use. And I write on my blog quite a bit about things the emotions around getting rid of things and why we get stuck. And I think part of it is because I go through that stuff myself. And I think that's part of the beauty of working with clients, is that I can completely understand where they are coming from, because I have either worked through it or still work through some of those stuck points myself. So I totally
Hmm.
understand what you're saying. I think it could be a generational thing as well. So you were talking about yourself compared to a grandparent.
Right.
I read about how people maybe in their 20s and 30s, maybe even 40s, how their idea of what they should have, own, or buy is very different from, say, my generation, my parents, my grandparents, where they want to have less for the most part. They don't want to have, the big house, the credit cards, the things collecting. They kind of like having a more simple life. So I think it's true. It could be generational.
So saying that though, I do like having a simple life.
Mhm.
I don't have many things, but the things that I have decided to keep are all kept in my mother's attic. There's a corner of the attic there that's just
Right.
stuff that I inherited, right? From my great grandparents and from my
Wow.
father, things from my childhood. Just some things are family heirlooms. So, when they've been going down in the generations for 8, 10, 12 generations already, you
Wow.
can't really throw that away.
Right. That's probably part of where people get a little stuck, because what do you do with that stuff? I mean, at some point, will mom ask you to put those things in your home, or your mom's life might change, or where she lives, or things like that. And so people kind of get stuck, like, okay, now I have to make a decision on what to do with this stuff. um
Yeah.
yeah, those can be hard decisions. I can understand what you're saying, though, especially since they've been passed down so many generations.
Well, so I'm pretty lucky that the house my mother lives in, she's going to live in, until 120 years. So, and the attic is big enough, so not an issue. But before that was something that was known for sure. Um, I already had a plan. I had said to myself, if for any reason, I need to move those things out, then I get a storage space in a city to which I have easy access, and I just keep it there, in a place that's
Mhm.
fireproof and anything, um, and like that. I'm not throwing these things away because I do want to keep them, but keeping them with me all the time is not always a smart option.
Right. And I think maybe that's where I'm kind of different from other organizers too. And that I don't feel like people have to have this, totally cleared out house, or that you have to get rid of everything. I think my idea of when I help people is that I just help them to not have stress or overwhelm around it. So
Yes.
if someone has, like you're saying, it's in mom's attic, or it might go into storage, and you feel good about that, and that's a good
Hmm.
solution, then that's perfect. If it's someone that's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with all these things, and I don't have anywhere to, work, or make
Yeah.
food, or things like that, then that's a different situation where we have to kind of take a look at making those hard choices, um, and what they want to
Hmm.
do with their space. So yeah.
What have you found? So, okay, let's say that you start with a client on decluttering, right? Their physical space. Do you often find that to help them do that, you need to go into the EFT?
So if I see that as we're having our conversation, I'm asking them questions about, each week, what worked for you this week, what didn't work, and what do you want to do for next week. But in the process of, the time that we've been away from each other, and there's certain things they got stuck on, or there's
Mhm.
emotions that they tell me that came up, that's the perfect time to use this emotional freedom techniques. Because
Okay.
Yeah, because I think that there's times where people, these emotions come up for them, and this is in all areas of our life, whether it's in business, whether it's our health. And a lot of people just kind of want to turn and go the other way because that's the easier choice to make, is I just want to avoid this. So it makes sense with decluttering that people just want to avoid it because there are emotions and decisions and places that we get stuck. So EFT is great to help us get more clarity and feel more confident and working on the project. And maybe even
Hmm.
sometimes you even get, because I tap almost every day just on my own. But I
Okay.
can, yeah, I can get kind of clarity on things. And if I'm asking myself questions while I'm tapping, and I can get new ideas or new pictures in my head, and that's very helpful.
Interesting. Uh, so tell me, being a clutter coach is not, too common. How did you start that? How long have you been doing it?
So originally I started, I think back in 2005, but my children were very small at that time. And I just couldn't believe people got paid to be a professional organizer because I always loved organizing since I was a kid. But it seemed that trying to time, like going to people's homes and juggling, I had like twins that were babies at the time and then one in elementary school. I was like, this is just not practical. So I took it back up again in 2012. And that's when I started writing on my blog, writing books, got certified as an EFT practitioner, and just kind of saw the bigger picture of how this could all come together. So just since 2012, I've been probably even more so writing about it. And
Okay.
just recently, since last fall, got back into the whole virtual organizing, working with people online and helping people as an EFT practitioner.
And so do you think you'll continue working mostly online, or
Oh,
is there an
yes.
added benefit to meeting with the people?
I love working online. I just feel like I'm able to help people with their project, but also to help people with the emotional side because I had found when I would go into someone's home, we just had the time to, the cleaning, the organizing, the moving the stuff around. I didn't feel like there was a way to stop and connect with, emotions you could see maybe were coming up. I
Hmm.
felt like we just had to power through because when they ask you to come into their home, they just really want you to help them get the job done.
Yeah.
But what I feel like is if I'm not helping them work through the emotions or the stuck points, that it could just go right back to where it was before I was there over time, which is not
Okay. Well,
helpful
that
for
makes
anyone.
sense.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I know from personal experience that when I'm disorganized in my mind, right, I look around me, and one of the best things that helps me in that case is just to move things into place, rearrange things, organize whatever needs to be organized, clean, and then my mind by itself declutters.
That's
I can
interesting.
I can think more clearly. I can see more clearly, and it's not only having a clean and organized space around me that helps. It's the actual action of doing it myself.
Yeah, that's good.
It's one of the reasons, by the way, I never had a maid.
That's one of the reasons. What do you
No,
mean?
it really. I mean, I could have, being single, and I could afford it. But I tried actually having a maid for a few weeks, but I saw that the lack of action of cleaning my apartment at the time was just, it didn't help me. The ritual of cleaning the apartment on a regular basis, it helped me keep my mind clear.
Okay, so you mean like a roommate, like someone that would share your space with you?
No, an actual maid.
Oh,
An actual maid that would come
okay.
to the
I I thought maybe being an American, maybe I wasn't understanding, but I get it now. Okay, that's
No,
interesting.
I had there was an apartment that I had, where everything was tip top. It was really beautiful, and I said, you know what? Let me get a maid. Right? It'll make my life easier. I won't have to do the twice a week cleaning and everything. So I
Mhm.
brought the maid over, and after a few weeks, I said, you know what? Thank you, but I'll continue from here. So
Okay.
she did, since she likes me, she did come, once a month just to do some things that maybe, I might have missed or whatever, just to make sure that everything was done well, like the windows and whatnot. But the
Right.
regular day-to-day cleaning, I would do.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
Sounds like a
So
nice place.
it was a nice place. I loved it. I was there for 2 years. Um, Now, if I'm not mistaken, you wrote a book.
I've written a few books. Yes, I love to
Oh,
write on
okay.
organization, and I do like to write about EFT. So I have a couple of books that kind of overlap where I talk about clutter and EFT, but then I have some books that just on organization, different parts of the home, like the kitchen, garage, help just getting started with projects, things like that.
Okay. How many books have you written?
That's a good question. You know what? I don't have a number off the top of my head. I also create journals, so that's probably why I'm not able to come up with a number, but I would say
That's
5 or
fine.
so. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I really enjoy it.
Yeah, okay, I guess so. Okay, and where can people go if they want to find more information about you and your services?
Well, thanks for asking. So you can find me at theunclutterangel.com, and that tells a little bit more about me, but it also has my blog on there. So you can go there and find a lot of great articles on different areas in the home. It also has some articles on EFT and how you can
Mhm.
use it with your decluttering. And I also have some printables on there to help with your projects as well. You can also find me on YouTube, and I think it's the Unclutter Angel TV. And that's probably the best place to start. Lots of free content there to help you out.
Perfect. And don't worry, all of those links will be in the show notes.
Well, thank you.
Of course. Is there any tips, if somebody has a home where they don't know where to start, okay, and they just, want to be able to get that first step done, just to be able to help themselves in their lives? What would be the first step to uncluttering their home or their mind, whichever you think is more relevant?
Well, that's a great question. I would say I would ask someone to pick a room, maybe
Mhm.
that they feel they want to function better in, that or that maybe gives them the it could go either way, it depends on the mind. It's either the one that gives you the most stress, that it would feel really, really good to get that room done, or maybe for you, for some people, if they get stuck easily, maybe it's the easiest room so they could kind of get a win and then they can
Okay.
move on to the next room. But I really recommend being hyper focused and just working 15 minutes a day. Just pick one room and work 15 minutes a day and be very laser focused so that that way you don't get distracted or discouraged, and before you
Mhm.
know it you'll have a more organized space.
And I have to say, it's actually incredible the amount of things you can get done in 15 minutes.
I agree.
Put an alarm clock on 15 minutes and don't look at your phone. Don't do anything except, decluttering and organizing the area. You'll see how much you're able to do. It's a lot.
And I totally agree, and in 15 minutes you can keep your energy up and you can be so focused that after a few days you'll go back and look at your space and you will be amazed at what you've accomplished.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's also easy to commit to doing 15 minutes a day. It's not that big a deal.
That's true. When you think about all the things we do during the day, most things take longer than 15 minutes, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Angela, for being with us today and for sharing the some information regarding EFT and uncluttering or decluttering. Which is the correct term, by the way, uncluttering or decluttering?
I think people say it both ways, but since I'm the unclutter angel, I like to say unclutter.
So we'll say unclutter. So thank you for sharing with us some of your knowledge, and all of the links will be in the show notes. And that's it. Have a great day.
Thank you for having me.
And for this week's question from the audience, what do I do if I'm trying to change but have a slip up? Even the most disciplined person on earth makes mistakes, has moments of weakness, and will slip up. If you want to be smart about any change, be it physical, mental, financial, emotional, whatever, you have to prepare a plan for what will happen when you do slip up. Making the perfect plan of action that does not have such a contingency in place for the times you will slip up is not a perfect plan and will leave you frustrated when you do make a mistake and feeling like you are weak. At this point, it will be easy for you to give up. If, however, you know ahead of time that there is a very high chance that at some point you will slip up and you have a plan in place for when it does happen, then guess what? You'll simply be able to go along with your plan knowing that you are just a human who makes mistakes and that is part of the process. So plan for your mistakes. Thank you for listening to this interview with Angela. All of the links mentioned in the show are in the show notes. Remember to subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you use to listen to podcasts. And if you haven't done so already, please leave us an honest review. Last but not least, go to our website and sign up for our newsletters, which come out twice a month so you do not miss out on anything important.